Sagittarius, there are moments when you can't quite name what you're feeling, you just know something inside you has shifted. It's not loud or obvious, but it can't be ignored. It's as if something deep within is beginning to stir, even though everything on the outside still looks the same. And this is one of those moments. You're stepping into a rare energy field. Not something out there, but something within. A place where old stories you thought were forgotten begin to rise again. The things you endured, the parts you hid, are now asking to be seen. Not to cause more pain, but to show you how long you've carried them. The meeting of Venus and Chiron is not a soft touch. It's like your heart being called out, right at the spot where it was once abandoned. And when this happens in Aries, the very first energy of the zodiac, there's no escaping it. It's not gentle, but it's necessary. If you've recently felt a strange heaviness in your chest, dreamt about someone from the past, or suddenly felt low for no clear reason, it's not random. Your body is speaking to you. It remembers exactly what you tried to forget, and now it's asking you to come back and listen. Not everyone can sense this, but those who have loved deeply or been deeply hurt will know it unmistakably. This is when the old heart calls to return. Not to relive the past, but to revise how you're living in the present. The defenses you once used to protect yourself, they're no longer working. You're inside what many call an accelerated healing chamber, a space where all old emotions, all repeated patterns are being brought up at once. It doesn't give you much time to prepare. It simply says, now is the time. There's no more room for delay. So if you find yourself more emotional than usual, if a small comment cuts deep, or if old memories unexpectedly rush back, there's nothing wrong with you. You're reacting exactly as you should. This isn't a time of weakness. It's a time of actually feeling again after being numb for so long. We're used to enduring, to pushing through, to moving on, to pretending it didn't matter. But wounds don't heal just because we ignore them. And right now your inner wounds are being pulled into the light. That's why everything feels so saturated with emotion. Because it is. The Venus-Chiron event isn't just a planetary alignment on a chart. It's a magnetic pull, drawing out from your heart the layers of memory that were never touched. It doesn't want to hurt you again. It simply wants to return what you once rejected, so you can see clearly what you've been carrying in love. All those waves of emptiness, frustration, tightness in your chest, or the sudden urge to cry, those are your heart's attempts to open. And every time you let emotion move through instead of holding it back, another crack forms in the wall inside you, not to break you, but to let the light in. From this point on, your heart will no longer be as shielded as it once was. The layers that once helped you survive are now starting to thin. You might feel more vulnerable, more easily touched, but in truth, you're beginning to feel again, no longer numb, no longer disconnected. This is the moment your heart begins to reconnect with yourself, reconnect with the emotions once suppressed. What was pushed down so you wouldn't have to feel pain is now surfacing, seeking release, not to drown you, but to let you breathe again. And most importantly, this sense of exposure isn't a new wound. It's part of the healing process, like an old wound needing to be unbandaged so it can breathe. Your heart needs to shed its hardened armor so the blood can flow again. You may find yourself wanting more time alone, wanting to withdraw, to quietly listen to your feelings. And that's perfectly normal. This is not a time to appear okay. This is a time when you're allowed to be soft. Because that too is a form of healing. What's happening isn't easy, but it's real, and sometimes simply not turning away from the feeling is enough to create a deep inner shift. Because the energy now doesn't ask you to understand everything, it only asks you to show up for yourself. When your heart begins to reopen, its first instinct isn't to look outward. It pulls you inward, back to the things that were never fully named, back to old relationships you thought you had let go of, but never truly understood. This is when the old films start playing again, not to haunt you, but to help you realize you're still stuck somewhere in your past connections. The one who left without a word, the love you tried so hard to hold on to, only to watch it slip away without knowing why. The unanswered questions now come back. Once more, not to throw you into old emotions, but to ask, why did that hurt so much? Each returning memory carries a missing piece, a piece of a pattern, a fragment of a wound you never had the time or space to really understand. Someone once made you feel like you weren't enough. Someone left you always expecting to be abandoned. Someone blurred your boundaries, and you allowed it. Those people aren't actually returning, but the emotions tied to them are coming back as a message you can no longer ignore. This isn't your mind playing tricks. This is energy guiding you back to the origin, the point where the pattern began, so you can finally see it, lay it down, and stop carrying it with you. As your heart begins to remember, your body doesn't stay silent. It isn't just a soulless machine reacting to external triggers. It is the very first place that stores what you once felt, and now it's sending signals clearer than ever. You might feel pressure in your chest, not sharp pain, but a heavy weight, or a tightness in your throat, as if something wants to be said but doesn't know how to begin. For some, it's a tingling sensation, like a light current running down the spine or a wave of energy rising from the belly. These feelings aren't illusions, they're real, and they speak a language of their own. Every area of tension carries a message. A constricted heart points to buried pain that needs air. A choked throat reveals the words you once silenced to keep others comfortable. Aching shoulders signal burdens you've carried that weren't yours to bear. The space between your shoulder blades, that may be the place you were stabbed by betrayal, but never faced it head-on. The body doesn't ask you to explain, it asks you to acknowledge. These sensations don't come to frighten you, they come to guide you, to bring your attention to the very places that need healing. This is the wisdom of the body, a wordless yet profoundly accurate wisdom. And if you know how to listen, your body will show you where the wound still waits to open. Sometimes all it takes is placing your hand over the pain, breathing in slowly, and gently asking, "What are you trying to tell me?" The answer may not come in words. It may arrive as a softening of tension, or a sudden tear falling down your cheek, and that alone is a beginning. The strange thing is, when the heart and body begin to open at the same time, it's not just pain you feel. You begin to see patterns. Cycles you once thought were random start to take a clearer shape. The way you choose people, the way you love, the way you fear loss, all of it traces back to things you never knew how to name. You might realize you're always drawn to those who aren't available, or that you're the one who pulls away the moment someone gets too close. Maybe you've always given too much, believing that if you were just good enough, they'd stay. These behaviors aren't your fault. They are survival instincts, built to help you endure, but now you're old enough to see they no longer help you grow. The energy of Aries doesn't let you dodge the truth. It shines like a spotlight at midnight, exposing the exact places where you're still hurting yourself unknowingly. It leaves no space for pretending. No more rounds of self-deception. You start noticing the moment you're about to react from the same old place, and you stop. You catch yourself repeating what you've always done, hoping for a different ending. And in that moment, something opens. A new choice appears. Not because anyone forced you, but because you finally feel, deep down, that you deserve something better. This isn't shame, this is illumination. When you see clearly what you've been repeating, you are no longer ruled by the wound. You begin to stand on the side of awareness, and that, right there, is the root of healing. When you start awakening from old patterns, something strange begins to happen. Not loudly, not dramatically. Maybe it's just an old song playing at the exact moment you're thinking of someone. Or a stranger walks into your life with a name so familiar it startles you. Sometimes it's an object you thought you'd lost, suddenly reappearing the moment you remembered it. These things aren't coincidences, they're signals, not meant for everyone, but meant for you. This is how the universe communicates, with a language only your heart can understand. It doesn't explain, it only nudges, just enough for you to feel like you're being reminded, watched over, gently guided. Sometimes it's a vivid dream, about someone from your past, about things you thought you'd forgotten. But this time, you see it more clearly. The dream isn't to pull you back, it's to show you how far you've come. Other times it's a number that keeps repeating, a bird that keeps showing up, or a color that unexpectedly stirs your emotions. That's the vibration of your frequency echoed back by the universe. You don't have to be superstitious to notice this. Everyone has had a moment where something small, almost trivial, moved their heart deeply for no clear reason. That's when you're not just thinking, but feeling. You're sensing life with the subtle radar of your soul. And when the sign appears, you don't have to do anything big. Just acknowledge it. Let your heart open. Whisper a quiet thank you, because it's not a small thing. It's a sign that you are connected to yourself, to your path, and to something greater that's quietly walking beside you. When the memories return, you'll find yourself wondering, why did that happen? Why did they leave? Why did it hurt so much? Why couldn't I move on like everyone else? The hardest part is this: you will never get a complete answer if you only look for it in the other person. But if you look within, you might find something even more important: a lesson. Not everyone who leaves you is bad, and not everyone who hurt you was wrong. Sometimes they were just living according to their own level of awareness at the time, and so were you. The things you once couldn't make sense of begin to feel clearer now, like maybe you abandoned yourself first before they ever did. Maybe you expected someone to heal what you hadn't even acknowledged within. When Venus meets Chiron, that fog begins to lift. You no longer need an apology to know your worth. You don't need a pretty closure to feel complete, because what you truly need isn't to fix what's broken. It's to see it clearly, so you no longer have to carry it. Clarity doesn't arrive like a wave of emotion. It comes like a deep breath, like a moment of lightness you can't quite explain. A soft release, not because someone fixed it, but because you understand now that experience came to teach you not to trade yourself away in love again. And sometimes that alone is enough. No need to call, no need to meet again, just the knowing, I've understood, and I won't relive that pain under a new disguise with someone else. When you stop clinging to what no longer belongs to you, stop trying to be good enough in someone else's eyes, you'll begin to notice things moving differently, not because you're out searching for something new, but because you've quietly stepped out of an old frequency, the one shaped by lack, by need, by fear of being left behind. And when those frequencies fall away, you become lighter, light enough for the right things to start moving toward you. Naturally. Your heart isn't just a place where emotions pass through, it's a transmitter. It sends out everything you truly believe about yourself, even if you never say it aloud. And that frequency draws in everything that matches that belief. When you begin to heal, it's not that you suddenly become more attractive in the conventional sense. It's that you start attracting connections that see and value you in the right way. People who don't ask you to shrink yourself, who don't need you to stretch just to fit them. For some, that may be someone completely new, bringing in an energy you've never experienced before. For others, it might be an old relationship but returning in a new form because both of you have changed. Or maybe the new thing is simply learning to be alone without feeling empty, no longer restless, no longer measuring your worth by someone else's attention. You don't have to try hard to attract this. You just have to stay aligned with your own rhythm. Keep steady with the frequency you're now reshaping, where you no longer over-explain, no longer guard yourself excessively, and no longer pressure yourself into being the easy-to-love version just to be chosen. What's truly meant for you is already being drawn in, not because you've become perfect, but because you've become real. And truth always has its own kind of magnetism. As your frequency changes, it's not just you that transforms, your relationships start shifting too. Not because others have become better or worse, but because you're different now. And that difference changes how you connect. Some people will feel like you've become distant, harder to understand, less dependent on them, less willing to bend. And slowly, they'll pull away. No drama, no fights, but clearly they're retreating. On the other hand, there will be people who never paid much attention before, but now they'll want to come closer. Because the energy you emit is no longer "I need to be loved," but rather "I am okay within myself." And those who resonate with that honesty, they'll step in. Not to rescue you, but to walk beside you. Some relationships will shift in structure. People you once only had surface-level chats with will suddenly start speaking to you with depth. Gaps you thought were unbridgeable may begin to close, and you'll start to see clearly. What's real doesn't require so much effort. What demands constant strain to maintain might never have been yours to hold. This isn't about choosing sides, deciding who's right or wrong, who should stay or go. It's about recognizing who reflects which version of you. Some people were a match when you were full of fear, doubt, and craving validation, but now that you've begun living more authentically, they no longer align. Their departure isn't a failure, it's a signal, a sign that you've moved into the next phase of your journey. And now a space is being opened, just wide enough for something new to come in. Not too early, not too late, but precisely when your heart is ready to receive, unguarded, and fully present. After enough heartbreaks, you stop wanting to control everything like you used to. You no longer try so hard to hold on to someone just because you're afraid of losing them. You stop constantly wondering what they think or whether you're doing enough, because you understand now, if you have to fight for it, it probably never truly belonged to you in the first place. And in that moment of letting go, your heart begins to clear. Not a kind of innocence, but a clarity that comes from awakening. Awake enough not to repeat the same patterns, calm enough not to react from fear of abandonment, and clear enough to know what you truly need, without placing that burden on someone else. When you reach this kind of inner freedom, love no longer feels like a battlefield. There's no need to compete, no need to play the role of someone sweet, low management, easy to love. Everything begins to filter itself. What stays resonates with your frequency. What leaves does so at the right time, no regrets, no blame. You no longer need to prove anything to the world. Your presence, if it's aligned, is already enough to create deep connection. And if it's not aligned, then no matter how hard you try to change yourself, it will never quite fit. You've come too far to return to a kind of love that demands you sacrifice who you are. So the only thing you truly need to hold on to is a heart that's clear and honest. The rest, let the universe take care of. You don't need to push anymore. Many people think healing means an ending, that you fully healed when you no longer feel anything about the past, that healing means smiling softly at those who once hurt you. But the truth is, healing is not erasure. It's learning how to live with your memories without letting them define who you are. At some point, the wounds are still there, but they no longer control you. You remember the old stories, but you don't shrink from them anymore. You can talk about the past without bitterness. You don't forget anyone. You simply no longer let your past dictate how you love in the present. And that is the biggest shift from someone who loved from an old pattern to someone who now loves in a new way. A love that doesn't require performance, that doesn't wait to be rescued, that doesn't use another person to fill an inner void. You love from a place of freedom, and you allow others to be free too. No grasping, no guilt, no shrinking yourself just to hold on to someone. This isn't the kind of love you learn from movies or romance novels. It's the kind of love that comes after you've lived through loss, after you've learned your worth, after you've accepted yourself, strengths and scars alike. This kind of love isn't flashy, but it's real, and it lasts. So, if your heart feels quieter these days, if there's a piece in you that you can't quite name, it may be that you've not begun a new relationship, but begun a new way of loving. One that no longer requires you to betray yourself. If you're still here and something in you has been touched, I invite you to write something down. Anything you've long wanted to say but never have. An unsent sentence, a silent sadness, a feeling you never dared speak. Write it, not for anyone else, but for you, because that too is a way of signaling to the universe, I'm ready. And if this journey has meant something to you, you can choose to subscribe, not to follow me, but to hold space for yourself. A place where you'll always be reminded, you're not walking this path alone.